But if Lady Boner Mark Darcy, commander of the Order of the British Empire, Colin goddamn Firth, thinks that families can and ought to rally together over a cathartic F-bomb dropped strategically amidst a historically sound Oscar-winning period film, well then who the fuck are you to say otherwise, really?
Some people aren't going to like you. I remember thinking like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to stand up in front of an audience and be like, I command you to whatever.
Oh, well, you had to be there. No, I didn't, because that's why we invented stories, so I, in fact, didn't gotta be there.
Welcome back, rhetoric nerds, to another episode of Rhetorically Speaking, a podcast about how we use language and how language uses us. I am your hostess with the mostest, Lee Pierce, she, they pronouns, hater of cliches, lover of my mother, and lover of a well-timed F-word. Fruit, futility, fulcrum, and fuck. It is no small thing to be a self-proclaimed lover of the F-word. Americans thrive on this Puritan idea. And even though we often hear this cliche that, oh, we need civility now more than ever, the truth is there's always been a pressure to perform civility, and it usually foregrounds speaking to one another in a very polite tone. And that means no F-bombs, my tender-eared listeners. But I'm actually going to pose the radical idea that people can be polite, maybe even civil, and still sprinkle in a little profanity. Put differently, maybe we can find other ways to measure how well we treat each other without resorting to the ambiguous and fraught tones of our voices and degree to which we've managed to sanitize our language. Sanitization. Good for fighting coronavirus, bad for language, needed to think about solutions to coronavirus. Being a decent human being doesn't come down to a word formula. Decency is an attitude that everybody deserves a generous read at first. Not forever, but at first. You can deliver incivility in 100% Disney-approved, G-rated language and be incredibly civil while you toss around F-bombs like you just sat on the pointy corner of a seatbelt. It's not the curse words or lack thereof that determine civility. Like this goddamn cookbook, Thug Kitchen, that keeps showing up on my radar, presumably because social media algorithms assume that being edgy also means being crass. The book is basically an in-your-face assault about how to be a badass thug vegan. And I have nothing against vegans. But the way this book is written, it's like, I get it, you're so hard. On the cover of the book is the motto of Thug Kitchen, eat like you give a fuck. I'm good with that. One fuck, nicely placed, strong sentiment of environmental and ethical responsibility, and offbeat for a cookbook. So far, so good. It resonates with what I'm always saying, speak like you give a fuck. Moving further into the book, however, we get into this intro page that reads as follows, which I will do using the voice Eliza Schlesinger uses in the P90X joke. What the fuck is this? This is a fucking wake-up call. This is for that section of the grocery store that you avoid. This is for drive-through lines so long that they block traffic. This is for ketchup and pizza qualifying as fucking vegetables. Welcome to Thug Kitchen, bitches. We're here to help. Inspire some motherfuckers to eat goddamn vegetables. Our motto is simple. Eat like you give a fuck. Okay there, cookbook. Now you just slow your roll. I'm only here to find a good recipe for portobello mushroom carpaccio. We do not know each other like that. But let's be good rhetorical critics and look at what's working before we tackle the promiscuous use of F-bombs. I like that there's a single theme that organizes the cookbook, instead of just, oh, here are vegan recipes. There's also a sense that the book is constructing you as the kind of person who makes an investment or gives a fuck about the impact of your food consumption. That actually takes some courage, because a lot of people don't give a fuck. To be the type of person who gives a fuck about something, you have to be thoughtful. And you have to, if you're in a group of people eating 500 pounds of cheeseburgers for some shitty factory farm, say, hey, maybe we don't do this cheeseburger smorgasbord again. Giving a fuck requires you to stick out and disrupt the norm. So I'm here for the spirit of Thug Kitchen. But the rhetorical performance of said spirit is problematic. 2 reasons. 1, obviously racial appropriation. I checked. Both these people are white. They have a podcast called Motherforkers. That's funny. But being white and calling anything thug, well, let's just say it's definitely part of the problem and not the solution. 2, aggressive assault of the addressee is overkill. It might hit somebody's vibe, maybe. I don't know those people, and they probably are not you, if I had to guess. But I get it might work for some people. So the authors could use it sometimes. But instead they use it all the time, and it is tedious AF. It's not the F-bomb specifically that's the problem. It's that they throw it around indiscriminately. Then they make an abrupt 180 with the bizarrely placed statement, welcome to Thug Kitchen, bitches, we're here to help. Like you are? Really? Because you seem to strongly disapprove of my lifestyle based on your egregious use of the word fuck to describe kitchen condiments. Yes, we're all very impressed. We get it. You're the first cookbook whose number one ingredient is profanity. But there's no purpose. You're just not a good writer. And you want people to buy your cookbook because they're shocked. That's not interesting or thoughtful or valuable. It's just cliche, but from an opposite direction. You can be cliche by having no opinion and just saying things that are nice and cool, or you can be cliche by saying horrible, offensive shit to people. Neither of them require thought. It's that nuanced in-between place for thoughtfulness is. When Thug Kitchen screams at me, we don't understand why eating real healthy food has to be such a big fucking deal. They undermine their own point. It's not a big deal. Then you made it a big deal with all your F words and capital letters. They gave away their own gimmick. To swear is to make a vow, like swear on a Bible. Making profanity a promise or a commitment. That's how I like to think of, quote, bad words like fuck. When you say them, you make a promise about your claim in language that you can't hide. You've made an explicit commitment to a certain identity in your speech. I appreciate that because most people do not think of their speech as a commitment or promise to our audience or our identity. You can certainly use explicit language just to pretend that you mean what you say, but either way, the use of the word itself marks your language as more significant. Cursing, which also means profanity, works kind of similarly in the sense you mark your words as having a direct, often negative effect on the world. But that doesn't work if every other word out of your mouth is fuck. I don't think using profanity proves that I'm authentic, but I think it's a step in that direction. And it also creates a sense of responsibility for me that I'm going to use all my words, all of them, including profanity, responsibly. I'm going to take responsibility for them. Which begs the question, what does thoughtful profanity look like? Well, I think this podcast is a good example. I also found an example of all places in podcasting. The name of the podcast is Losing 100 Pounds with Fit and Fat. It's hosted by these two Southern women, Corinne and Kathy. And their catchphrase is real diet talk from someone who defeated a lifetime of obesity and now teaches you. I'm going to play you an excerpt from a Facebook Live titled, How to Keep Going on Your Diet After the New Year's Excitement Wears Off. This Corinne woman perhaps does the best job of defending the F word that I've ever heard.
Oh, I love it when people say this. You are very informative, but your language could be a little nicer. It doesn't really take that for us to understand. Bye. My mama taught me to cuss. My granny cussed. We all cuss in my family. Guys, I'm just going to tell you right now. I say it all the time. You do not have to listen. This is a free Facebook Live. The 588 other people that are sitting here right now, they like it. If you don't, I'm not going to make you stay. Just go find someone who has language you love. Don't sit here and then worry about my language. You know what happens when you're very consumed with my language? You're not thinking about what you're doing for yourself. Like, I really want everyone to hear this because this goes into everything. It's not even just my cuss words. A lot of you sit around and you think, like, you'll be sitting there and you'll just be thinking, I wish she'd change. I wish they'd do these things different. Rather than going, I'm going to get off my ass. I'm going to go find what works for me. Like, that's what you have to focus on. You have to focus on your life. Don't focus on my mouth. I love my mouth. Let me tell you a couple key points. I think it's fucking awesome. It drives home the point. I had somebody the other day. This was like people who pay me money to listen to it. I was going to town about something. I don't know what it was. And I had a big old string of F-bombs running through. And she said, oh my God, I've never heard anybody that can use the F word so much and every single time it matter. So everybody's got an opinion. I'm all happy with it. But I just want everybody to understand the reason why I swear is because I grew up this way. And I ain't changing for nobody. Nobody. I haven't done jack shit my entire life to change for other people. And you know what? It makes me a pretty damn happy individual because I get solid with me. I believe in me. And that's like what I try to teach all of you. Like, you do you, you be you. I'm not going to sit here and try to be somebody else. It's exhausting. I would go to bed every day wore out if I tried to be the person that I think every person on a free Facebook Live would like me to be. I just come on here and if you want to listen, you have at it. If you don't want to listen, I'm sure there's 10 other people right now talking diets on Facebook Lives.
First of all, notice how strategic the use of the word fuck actually is. It's not all over the place. It's judicious, discerning. It has to be, or it fails to make the point. Second, The whole speech points out the way that profanity often gets thrown up as an excuse just not to listen. Now, in some cases, that's true. I'm probably not going to get my recipes from the kitchen because I hate the way they talk to me. But that's an egregious use of the F word. If someone throws up an occasional curse word and you're like, I'm out, that would be the same as me quitting Al-Anon because sometimes people in the room reference God. It's really just an excuse not to listen, and that extends across the board, whether it's God or the F word or occasionally slipping into some Spanglish. Is it really making it that hard for you to process what's being said? The stuff about authenticity gets into a little trouble, however. It's unlikely that anyone ever has, in fact, quote, done jack shit to change for someone. We all change for people all the time in all different ways. You couldn't survive if you didn't. I was a fucking moron when I was 17. If I hadn't changed in response to other people, I would most certainly be helping my heroin addict boyfriend fill out disability paperwork right now. But I think the point being made isn't literal. Corinne is talking to people pleasers and trying to show them how they hide behind other people's behavior to avoid living their life. That's different than how you might, say, talk to a juvenile delinquent that you're desperately trying to keep from going off the deep end. Also, I'm wary of the whole, you can just go listen to someone else argument. In the case of a public Facebook Live offering free advice about weight loss, sure, swear yourself up a storm and let people just turn your shit off if they don't like it. Under many conditions, however, the whole, well, if you don't like it, you can just leave, doesn't take into account the realities of the situation. Whether I like it or not, it is in fact very hard to be a wielder of the profane word and also not have people around you constantly think you're mad at them. When I'm speaking to large groups of people, I generally provide like a disclaimer, like, yo, my energy right now is directed toward our topic of discussion. I just get really ramped up about shit. It's not directed at you. It's not about you. But is it even possible for me to ask other people to make that distinction? I mean, if other people think that way and they think that I'm talking in ways that make them feel like I'm coming at them or attacking them, do I really get to tell them otherwise? Trying to provide a disclaimer about language effects always raises the fundamental issue of whether the creator of the message has any control over how the message is received. No, not really. If you want to say fuck in your discourse, then you're responsible for all of its effects, whether or not you think they're fair or reasonable or that anyone should have felt some way about something. Profanity is like all things rhetorical. It's just a choice. And you have to be willing to accept the consequences, negative and positive, of your choices. There's no world in which I get the perfect amount of profanity or not profanity and everyone loves me and no one is ever put off by my mouth. It's not going to happen. But I also don't want people ever saying that what I do or say makes them feel uncomfortable or unsafe or makes it hard for them to learn. I don't just brush the reactions of others aside because, well, I didn't mean it that way. I'm not going to hide behind that shitty outlook. Our sense of responsibility has to be different in different contexts, but it still has to be a sense of responsibility across all contexts. Like as a podcaster or a blogger, I feel a lot more entitled to do what I want because my listeners have choices. They can turn it off, and that is a fair consequence for making a language choice that does not work for them. We are in a very mutually accountable position. In other contexts, people don't have that freedom to turn off things that they believe are upsetting them, something that they are totally entitled to want to do. If I'm in a team at work where people kind of have to be around me or they can't pay rent, or I'm in a classroom where students have to be with me or they can't graduate, then my responsibility for my language has to considerably increase. In those contexts, I essentially have these other people captive, and they don't have any legitimate mode of escape. So if I'm dropping F-bombs left and right, and they have a lot of uncomfortable thoughts or feelings about it, they're stuck with no way out. It's even worse if I'm in a position of power or leadership where they really can't stand up for themselves. In those contexts, I still swear, I'm not a good person sometimes. But I work a little harder to be conscientious that I'm no more entitled to swear indiscriminately as others are entitled to not have to hear any profanity. We are all equally entitled and not entitled to an environment in which we are comfortable. I might choose to stick it to the safe swear words like ass or shit. I almost never use bitch, as in quit your bitching, or tits, as in this is tits, in general company because of the gender connotations. And even though I'm perfectly comfortable using them, I stay away from British slang like twat and cunt for the same reasons. I don't use douche, as in don't be a douchebag, or dick, as in don't be a dickhead, because I don't vibe with them. Those are the profane words of an unthoughtful person. I've also had people tell me to stop using the word fuck because it has rapey origins. The acronymic explanation of the origin of fuck takes one of two paths, explains Snopes. Quote, fornication under consent of the king, or for unlawful carnal knowledge. Here's Noor Khan of Youth Kiawaz. At its surface, the phrase fuck you, a pervasive slang even in woke circles, is an outright threat of rape. That the word fuck, laced with overtones of violence, became synonymous with sexual intercourse in the evolutionary history of our language is telling of our eagerness to perceive sexual relations as inclusive of a certain degree of violence. Now, Snopes says that the relationship between the word fuck and non-consensual violence holds no water, but I'm not interested in whether or not the origin story is true. It may have been true at some point, if for no other reason than people believe it to be true. You can't make your decisions about language on what you have determined to be, quote, the truth. If other people think the F word is rapey and it makes them uncomfortable, you have to decide if you want to take that into consideration and maybe tone it down in places and spaces where people are forced to interact with you. But don't mistake it for civility. And don't underestimate the power of a good F-bomb to make a salient point. Take the famous profanity scene from the film The King's Speech, for example, which starred Colin Firth as the stammering Prince Albert of Britain, soon to become King George VI, and Geoffrey Rush as Lionel Logue, an Australian speech therapist retained by the prince to help him overcome a stutter.
What is it about you that bloody well makes you want to go on about it the whole bloody time?
Vulgar but fluent. You don't stammer when you swear.
No, bugger off.
Is that the best you can do?
Well, bloody bugger to you, you beastly bastard.
Oh, a public school prig could do better than that.
Shit. Shit, 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 shit.
Yes.
Shit.
Defecation flows trippingly from the tongue.
Because I'm angry.
Do you know the F word?
Fornication.
Oh, Bertie.
Fuck. 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 Fucking fuck. Fuck. Fucking bugger. Bugger, bugger, buggity, 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 fuck, fuck, ass.
Yes.
Balls, fucking
You see,
shit,
not a
shit,
hesitation.
fucking willy, shit and fuck and tits.
Dad? What's going on? Sorry. Just finish your homework. Well, that's a side of you we don't get to see all that often.
No, we're not supposed to, really. Not publicly.
Screenwriter David Seidler won the Oscar for The King's Speech at age 73. Seidler was the oldest person ever to win the award. Seidler was interviewed by his alma mater, Cornell University, about the film and the profanity scene in particular. The magazine asks, why was the scene so important to include? Seidler answers, it's one of the very few scenes that I could not prove actually happened, but I know it must have, or something similar, because it's a cathartic moment that every stutterer goes through. In my case, I was 16. I knew that if I didn't get a good handle on my stutter by late adolescence, my chances went down precipitously, because the older you get, the harder it is to deal with. I was 16, hormones were raging, I couldn't ask girls out on a date. And even if I couldn't, they said yes, what was the point? I couldn't talk to them. So anyway, then the King's Speech gets picked up, people love it, critical acclaim, wins a million awards, blah, 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 but the profanity scene. The scene that a 73-year-old man who probably can't work an iPhone dubbed not only real and necessary, but also transformatively cathartic. That's what got everyone's panties in a bunch. So as a result of the profanity scene, King's Speech picks up an R rating from censors in the States because of the king uttering a succession of curses in an effort to curb his stammer. To help boost sales, the studio releases a family-friendly PG version of the King's Speech without the original's profanity. And Sir Colin Firth was having fucking none of it. According to an interview with Hollywood Reporter, Firth hated the PG-13 version. He told reporters, "The swearing serves a purpose. I'm not someone who's casual about that kind of language. I take my children to football games. I hate hearing that kind of language in their ears. But I won't deny them the experience of a live game. But in the context of the film, it couldn't be more edifying, more appropriate. It's not vicious or insulting. It's not in a context that might offend." I mean, I had a lady boner for Colin Firth before I came across this interview, but now, it's getting hot in here, you know what I'm saying? And I get it. You may not consider me a reasonable source for telling you that intentional, thoughtful profanity may have a rhetorical purpose worth revering. I'm some aging hipster hiding behind a microphone with questionable taste in cookbooks, and you may not believe some southern weight loss guru on an Instagram live. But we're talking about Colin Firth, Mark Darcy, the guy from Bridget Jones's whose name I can't remember. The Queen of England awarded him the title of Commander of the Order of the British Empire for, and I quote, distinguished innovative contribution to any area. Colin Firth would most certainly not approve of the crass heavy-handedness of Thug Kitchen, or me carelessly dropping F-bombs to unnecessarily aggrandize Monroe's motivated pattern, or you getting annoyed with your administrative assistant and mumbling fuck this, fuck that under your breath as you passively-aggressively create a toxic work environment. But if Lady Boner Mark Darcy, Commander of the Order of the British Empire, Colin goddamn Firth, thinks that families can and ought to rally together over a cathartic F-bomb dropped strategically amidst a historically sound Oscar-winning period film, well then who the fuck are you to say otherwise, really? Become a little less cliche with each new episode of Rhetorically Speaking dropping every Tuesday. Be sure to hit subscribe and leave a review on whatever app you use to listen. Don't be a digital freeloader. You're better than that.